Good day, student. You are welcome to another section of biology class by Mr. Jot, and today's topic is taxonomy, classification in biology. At the end of today's lesson, each and every one of us should be able to define the terms taxonomy and binomial nomenclature. Should be able to state the pattern of binomial nomenclature and 5 kingdoms of classification of organisms. Should be able to classify organisms into the hierarchy from kingdom to species. And finally, we should be able to describe the major characteristics of each kingdom. Let's begin. What is taxonomy? Taxonomy is the process of naming and placing together of organisms in the categories of their common features and behaviors that distinguish them from the other organisms. The study of classification of living organisms and their evolutionary relationship is what we call taxonomy. Then, what is now binomial nomenclature? This simply means two naming system, and the names involve the generic name, which is the first one, and must begin with a capital letter, and the other one is the species name, the two of them written together. The generic name must start with a capital letter, and the second one, which is the species name, starts with a small letter. Both should be underlined if handwritten, or if you are typing, it must be italicized. This system of classification of organisms, or the two naming classification, was introduced by the Swiss scientist Carl von Linné, who lived between the years 1707 till 1778. His name was later Latinized to Carolus Linnaeus. So if you are asked who is the father of classification of living organisms in biology, you mention the name, the Carl von Linné, 1707 to 1778, or Carolus Linnaeus. The 5 kingdom classification of organisms, which we are going to be talking about, was given by Whittaker, another scientist, in 1959. And what are these kingdoms that were given? He gave the kingdom Monera, the kingdom Protista, the Protoctista. He gave the kingdom Fungi, and kingdom Plantae, and finally kingdom Animalia. Why is classification of organisms important in biology? Well, number one reason, it helps the biologists to know the organisms better. It makes it easy for organisms to be studied, and it helps the scientists to know the natural relationship with each other with one organism and the other one, and also to know the status in the evolutionary trend of this organism. Let's continue. Let's know, what do we mean by hierarchy of classification of living organisms? This shows the grouping of organisms based on the common features that they have. The one that is not common, that we are not used to in the level of our study as a student in secondary school, beginners, is domain. And the 3 domains that we are using in biology include the bacteria, the archaea, and the eukarya. This domain is not usually added to our questions. But the one that we're much concerned with, that we're going to use, is the kingdom, which is the largest group of classification of organisms. And this organism in this group have least common features. And for example, we have animal, human or man, with dog, with cat, with rat, with lizard, with earthworm, with tapeworm. All these organisms are grouped as animals, yet they have few things that they do in common, and that involves movement. So this is just about classifying largest group of organisms based on few common features together. When we go down the group, after the kingdom, the next division after kingdom is the phylum. Phylum for other kingdom like animal, kingdom Animalia, kingdom Protista, but we don't use phylum for kingdom Fungi or kingdom Plantae. We use division. So after this phylum division, we have a next group, class. As you can see from the diagram, it is pointing from the largest and it is reducing, meaning that you are grouping organisms with their common similarities. So they're having more similarities as we're going down from kingdom to phylum to class to order to family, genus, and species. Now, the species is of importance because it consists of the group of organisms having most features in common. And if we want to define species, we define it as a group of interbreeding organisms which mate to produce a viable offspring. I will help you with these acronyms. Kings play chess on fat guy's stomach. This will enable you to remember all this hierarchy of classification. The kings represent the kingdom, the play represent the phylum or division, the chess represent the class, and on represent order, fat for family, guys for genus, and stoma for species. Think this will help you a long way to know how to state the hierarchy of classification of organisms. Let's quickly look at five kingdoms that I mentioned earlier. What are these five kingdoms as given by Whittaker in 1959? This one include the kingdom Monera. What are examples of organisms under this kingdom? We have the bacteria. We have the green algae, also known as cyanobacteria. Example of the next kingdom is Protista or Protoctista. Example of organisms include this amoeba, euglena, paramecium, trypanosoma, and the rest of them. What about the kingdom fungi? Example of organisms in this group include the yeast, Saccharomyces, that's the scientific name of yeast, the aspergillus, the rhizopus, the penicillium. The mushroom is agaricus, that's the scientific name of it. What about the next kingdom, Plantae? Kingdom Plantae include the red algae, that's the group of plants under the Talophyta, the undifferentiated plant body. The maize, which the scientific name is Z maize, as you can see it written. Then the mango, the Mangifera indica. We have a lot of plants that we are used to, particularly the one we eat. So this kingdom Plantae is more of common organisms that we know. Then kingdom Animalia, which is the last, and that's the kingdom where we human belong. We have a lot of organisms like Hydra, sea anemone, the earthworm. Earthworm is Lumbricoides terrestris, the roundworm Ascaris lumbricoides. These are examples that I will look and to talk more for examples of kingdom Animalia. Let's begin to see the characteristics the types of cells that we can find in organisms. If we look at every organism in this kingdom, there are two types we have discovered, and the two types of cells are the prokaryotic cell and the eukaryotic cell. Look at it. The difference between these two cells is that there is a nucleus in every cell. But in prokaryotic cell, these are regarded as primitive cell. They lack nuclear membrane around their genetic material. And this suspended genetic material, as you can see in the first diagram, where we see a cell that looks like a capsule, that's a prokaryotic cell. And having its genetic material suspended in the cytoplasm at the center, that is showing you a cut section of it. So that genetic material coiled up there is regarded as nucleoid. So it's not a real nucleus. So we can say a prokaryotic cell is a primitive cell that lacks true nucleus and has cell and lack nuclear membrane. And example of organism which has this is the kingdom Monera. All the organisms under kingdom Monera, like bacteria, the cyanobacteria, they have this kind of cell. So they are like that from their making, and that makes them to be different from the eukaryotic cell, which have true nucleus. That means all the genetic materials are enclosed within a nuclear membrane. So they have nuclear bound membrane. And example of this organism include the animal cell and plant cell. As you see, after the prokaryotic cell, we have the eukaryotic cell, which is the animal cell. Animal cell is round like in shape, and you see a cut section of it. And plant cell is more of rigid, having a kind of rigid shape, as you can see, and because it has cell wall, giving it that rigidity. Likewise, the prokaryotic cell, which I mentioned, also has cell wall. Now, the difference between the cell wall of these two is that in the prokaryotic cell wall, it is made up of peptidoglycan cell wall, and that eukaryotic cell is made up of cellulose cell wall. Let's go to the kingdom individually and study them. Number one, we look at kingdom Monera. Kingdom Monera are a group of very simple organisms with simple structure. They are primitive, in because I said they lack nuclear membrane around their genetic material. They are found in some oldest rocks. Then they include the bacteria, and blue-green algae, which I said earlier, cyanobacteria. The bacteria they belong to the phylum of Schizophyta, and they are microscopic. All these organisms are microscopic. They are living in aquatic environments because of their nature. They have cell wall, which I said earlier, made up of peptidoglycan, and their mode of reproduction is by binary fission, meaning that a cell will divide into two identical daughter cells. Actually, recent research has shown that they can reproduce also by conjugation sexually. So it is not only by asexual or binary fission that they can reproduce. Many are heterotrophic under the phylum Schizophyta, the bacteria, and while few are autotrophic. What we need here, what we are saying here, is that bacteria exist in different form, and we can study bacteria or describe bacteria based on their shape. If the bacteria is in spherical shape, we say it is cocci, as example in Streptococcus, Staphylococcus. And if it is in rod shape, we say it is a bacilli or bacillus singular. Then example is E. coli, Escherichia coli. Then if it is spiral shape, it's called spirillus or spirilla, or spirocate, as in the case of Treponema pallidum, syphilis causing bacteria. We have different kind of bacteria. Let's to talk more, you see on the course of studying biology. Let's look at the next phylum, meaning that we have two phylum to discuss under kingdom Monera, the Schizophyta and the cyanobacteria. So the second one I'm discussing, which is the cyanobacteria, is also known as the blue-green algae. They are unicellular also. They are found in both fresh water as well as on rock and in damp soil. They contain chlorophyll, meaning they have chlorophyll, a pigment which enable them to carry out photosynthesis. Let's take note. One of the major things about bacteria or kingdom Monera is that they lack some organelles like mitochondria and chloroplast. And it's expected that chlorophyll is found in the chloroplast. Since they lack chloroplast, their chlorophyll is there, which enable them to carry out the photosynthesis. Some cyanobacteria fix atmospheric nitrogen into the soil. An example of cyanobacteria include the nostoc or Salatoria. As you can see, cyanobacteria there, Anabahena. If you ask, these are examples of cyanobacteria. The next kingdom, which I want to talk about quickly, is the kingdom Protista or Protoctista. These also are microscopic organisms. They are unicellular organism also, just because they are one cell. They are eukaryotic cell. They are made of eukaryotic cell, meaning that the cell have nuclear membrane around the genetic materials. Then most of them are aquatic because of their nature. They are unicellular organisms. They have become a group based on their nature. Those that looks like plant are known as protophyta, and these ones may also have cellulose, which give them their rigidity or their rigid shape. Example of these organisms include the Chlamydomonas, the chlorella, and diatoms. Then the animal-like protists are known as protozoan. These ones, they lack chlorophyll, they feel heterotrophically. They don't have cellulose cell wall. An example of this organism include the amoeba, the paramecium, and other ones like trypanosome. Then Euglena. Euglena is a very controversial organism. Why? Because it looks like a plant, also like animal. If you look at the diagram, that's the third diagram starting from the left. The second diagram is amoeba, is showing no particular shape. So the Euglena has a structure, the rope-like structure or whip-like structure that is long, which it uses for movement, and that is the flagellum. That makes it like animal, but inside it, Euglena has chloroplast, which enables it to manufacture a food, which is a plant characteristics or feature of Euglena. I will move away now from kingdom Protista to the kingdom Fungi. Under the kingdom Fungi, we have the organisms that are plant-like but lack chlorophyll. They cannot make their food by photosynthesis. The cells of fungi has about 2 nuclei, and their body is made up of a mass of of mass of body called mycelium. Then most of them are saprophytes. What does this mean? They release enzymes on the dead organisms, and their enzymes will digest these organisms. They absorb the digested food material into their body through their rhizoid. They have cell walls, but their cell wall is made up of chitin. That means we have 3 groups of organisms that have cell walls in the lesson. We have the plantae. Plantae have cellulose cell wall. The bacteria, they have peptidoglycan cell wall. And now the kingdom fungi has chitinous cell wall. They have body that is undifferentiated into root, stem, and leaves. I mentioned that. Now, one thing fungi has in common with animals is that they are able to store excess glucose as form of glycogen, but plants has ability to store excess glucose as starch. So one thing about fungi also is that they reproduce both sexually and asexually. What are examples of fungi? We have the rhizopus, the mocha, the mushroom, and the yeast. So looking at what we have here, these are the divisions of the fungi. The phycomycetes, which are the lower fungi, the ascomycetes, which are the sac fungi. Example, the common one is the yeast there. Then the basidiomycetes, which include the mushroom agaricus. Then the pteromycetes include the trichoderma, or these are fusarium. These are mostly parasitic fungi that we can find on our body. The next kingdom, which I will also take now, is the kingdom Plantae. Don't let us forget that we have 5 kingdoms. We have treated kingdom Monera, kingdom Protista, kingdom Fungi. Now we are treating kingdom Plantae. Now, the kingdom Plantae is one of the most common organisms that we can see as students at our level, and the kingdom include multicellular organisms. These organisms have green pigment, chlorophyll, and they have chloroplast. This ones is what differentiates them from every other one, and they also have cellulose cell wall. The procession of the green pigment enables them to be autotrophic in their mode of feeding, meaning that autotrophic is automatic mode of feeding. They manufacture their food by themselves using sunlight. And the plant kingdom consists of 3 main divisions. What are the divisions that we have is the Talophyta. These are plants that do not have a kind of differentiated body. They are aquatic. They stay in water, e.g. the green algae, the brown algae, and the red algae. Then the division 2 that I will describe is the Bryophyta. These ones are also partly aquatic plants. They have body that looks like root or stem and leaves, but this body structure are not actually the real root and stem. They don't have a structure that conducts water through their body system. So they are non-vascular plants and they don't produce flower. Now, one thing about bryophyta is that they need water so that the mode of reproduction can be accomplished. Now, the next division which I will talk is tracheophyta. Now, tracheophyta means plants that have structure for transporting minerals and materials within them. They have vascular bundle. When we say vascular bundle, we are looking at the structure like the xylem, xylem, and the phloem. The phloem and xylem are the main structure that are found in the trachea of plants, which is the vascular bundle. And what they use, xylem is for conducting minerals and water, while the phloem is conducting the manufactured food from the plant leaves to the plant body. And the final one, which is under tracheophyta, or when we are saying tracheophyta, we are talking about the pteridophytes. The pteridophytes are the ferns, as you can see in the diagram, after the example of bryophyta. Example of bryophyta are the mosses and liverwort in the diagram. Then the ferns are the example of the pteridophyte. These plants, they are small, but they are less dependent on water because their structure has vascular bundle. They can conduct water from the environment into their body parts. So this is where vascular bundle plant begins, the ferns. An example of fern includes Dryopteris. Quick one, the spermatophyta is another type of tracheophyta, a vascular bundle possessing plant. This include the major and the common plants we have around us. We have the gymnosperm. These are conifers, cone-bearing plants, and these plants are examples of leaves that are needle-like in structure. This one you can see here is the cycad. The cycad, we have the cycad as an example of gymnosperm. Then we have the Christmas tree, also that belongs to that gymnosperm. Now, the angiosperm, the angiosperm, which is the most common plant that we find around us, and that's one we are used to. These are flowering plants. An example of flowering plants include maize, the rice. So we have the two types of the angiosperm, the flowering plant. The two classes are the monocotyledon and the dicotyledon. The monocot plants, these ones are having one seed leaf in their seeds. They are flower, they are grass-like in structure. They have adventitious roots. They have needle-like leaves or sword-like leaves. Sword-like leaves, and the venation in their leaves is parallel venation. These plants also have no petiole. They have broad base of their leaf. So it's different from the dicot plants. The dicot plant is also another class of angiosperm. They have two seed leaves. They have petioles. Their leaf has petiole, and their leaves is usually broad and small. It's not sword-like like monocot. These plants, and they produce a brightly colored flower, unlike the monocot, which produce a dull color and small flower structure. You see more of this example of organisms when you go study in your biology. And last kingdom, which I know, which we are all familiar with, is kingdom Animalia. These also are multicellular organisms. They do not have chlorophyll nor chloroplast. Neither can they manufacture their food. So this is how you describe them. You say they depend on ready-made food. They are heterotrophic, meaning that they have different mode of feeding. So the major phyla of this group, about 9 of them. Now I will discuss them by mentioning one example each. When we say the phylum number 1 is the Porifera, these are sponges, which you can see in the diagram beside the lion, image of lion there. They are aquatic. These organisms, they move when they are young, but when they are becoming old, they settle down, become a tube-like and sponge-like structure, and they are found in marine habitat. The next one are the coelenterata. The coelenterata, or example, are the cnidarian, which you see at the edge after the starfish. You can see there. These ones include the sea anemones or the hydra. They have tentacles. So these are organisms. They are also aquatic. They are found in marine habitat as well. The platyhelminthes, these are known as flatworms. These are flatworms, and some of them are parasitic, some are free living. The parasitic one include the tapeworm, and the free living include the planaria. The platyhelminthes are radially symmetrical. Then the bilateral. Sorry, the platyhelminthes. Some are bilateral. They are most are bilaterally symmetrical, and they have two body layers. Okay, the nematode. The nematode include the roundworm, and they are unsegmented. An example include the ascaris, which are parasitic in human. Okay, the nematode are usually parasitic, and the example include the hookworm too, and the ascaris. I said these are roundworm. They can only few can be free living. Then annelida include the round segmented worm. Round segmented worm, for example, is the earthworm and the leech. The leech is a parasitic one, it sucks blood, and the earthworm is a free living one. Then arthropoda. Arthropoda are the largest and most successful group of animal kingdom. They include the cockroach, the scorpion, the crab. Why are they successful? Because they produce more. They produce more of themselves, or they have high reproductive rate, and they are found everywhere. They survive everywhere mostly. They have jointed leg. The meaning of arthropoda means jointed leg and segmented body. They have their body covered with chitinous exoskeleton. Okay, the echinodermata. The echinodermata is the mollusk. Before I move, the mollusk include the soft body unsegmented organisms, and the echinodermata, sea urchin, sea cucumber, and finally the group that has backbone are the chordata, which is the last phyla, number 9 phyla. So we have 9 phyla for kingdom Animalia, and the classes of chordata is the fish, the amphibians, the reptiles, the birds, and the mammals. Thank you for listening to this class. I believe you go to the work section of this lesson after the lesson and download the worksheet, work, and solve the question there. See you once again in another class. I'm still Mr. George at homeclass.com.ng. Thank you very much. Goodbye.